please join me in welcoming wonderful two young digital design studio owners. So we'll quickly get to the questions. I know you are both young and you have had quite a bit of experience behind you. But I'm sure you always think about your academic, so pardon me, I'm from an academic world mostly, so I'll ask you a bit of an academic question. I'm sure at times you go back in your minds and think about your school days. And so I'm asking you to rewind 15, 16 years back and think about that day in a classroom where you thought, the lecture or the studio is boring, I'm just going to do something else, maybe go for a movie. Fast forward, and now you have something in your studio, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, gosh, I wish I had paid some attention, then this would have been easier. So give us a story if you have such kind of a story in your life.
So just to give a brief background, I graduated as an architect and then did my communication design from IDC. And very rightly, Mukesh, what he said, yeah, we have all slept in classes. Typically, history of architecture was the most boring for me. I studied from BIT Mestra, Saturdays were half days, and 11 o'clock, there was only one bus which used to go to the town. So it was around 10 kilometers away. We were in the jungle. And that was the only time when we can catch a movie at 1 o'clock because the return bus, again, had a limitation. So otherwise, you had to pay for it. So, Priyanka, who's my partner and also was my girlfriend at that time, she says they all made a plan to go for a movie. And unfortunately, I had to miss a class, and I couldn't miss a class because if the attendance was short, I was not allowed to give the exam. So I was being a spoiled sport, and I tried convincing everybody to attend the class and said, you know what, guys, please do this. And I was hoping that my request would be actually heard and everybody will attend the class. And obviously Priyanka, I was kind of thinking she would at least attend it. And when I reached the class, I was the only person in the class. And that was history of architecture, and I had to sit there for 3 hours. And my professor, he was very passionate. I mean, I don't remember the name. Mr. Chakravarti, yeah, he was very passionate. He was he used to work, and Saturdays was the only time when he used to have. And he used to just come to the class, and he was very passionate about this whole thing. And imagine my state, I had to keep my eyes open for 3 hours continuously listening to that history of architecture. So, I wasn't bored, but at least I was quite taken aback with my friends. I mean, they just ditched me. They just ditched me. I mean, trust me, that was one of the low points in my life when I thought that I couldn't even trust my friends. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the incidents that I can relate to when I was not really into studies as such. Coming back to today as well, I think we do run off to movies. If there's a bad client meeting, then the only way to kind of elevate yourself is just get inside something which changes your mood. And we do that even. I mean, I have wonderful partners, Hemant, Geeta, Priyanka there. I mean, our studio is just next to a mall. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's just next to a mall. So it's just 5 minutes away. If you're in a bad mood, just catch a movie. And that's what we do today as well. So I think things have not changed. We still run away if things are not happening.
Anil?
Okay. Rewinding back to my school days, I was really bad at studies. So I was an artist, and somewhere the social science and mathematics didn't get into my head. So I remember one incident. This was a battle of Panipat, and it was like 7, 8 pages of the chapter, and I was visualizing the battle, and actually I failed in social. So I sketched, and I showed it to my teacher, and she said, "This is not what I want." And my school, the school that I came from, didn't really encourage art, but we had to fight. And then without telling the school, I attended one of the drawing competitions, and I came first. And the next day the school was in the newspaper, and things changed. So it was a great journey. Then the entire school started recognizing, and they introduced art as a subject. And I can't believe today I'm here, started a company, and with 36 people in our team, and it's a great journey.
Thank you both. So we're going to keep in the, present time. I would like to know the story behind the names of your two firms. I'll start with you, Anil, first, because I'm really interested in Lollypop. What's the story?
Okay, Lollypop. Lollypop is basically we want to give sweet experience and leave a mark, but that's not the truth. So we called it Pixie Tree, and there were too many trees in Bangalore. There was Mind Tree, Soft Tree, and I didn't like the name. And my son, the very first word he spoke was top. That was Lollypop. And that's where we started looking for a Lollypop domain, and it was not available. Then my wife was like, okay, we will call it Lollypop. And one of the designers in our studio, he started creating a story around it. It's like, great name, I think I'll write a story around it. And Lollypop happened.
Okay. Now you had quite a few iterations of the image for Lollypop, right? So tell a little bit about that, the story about that.
Yeah, I believe in design being a very iterative process. So when we started, the website was very, very simple, and it basically spoke about work. And we, after a couple of iterations, and today we kind of recognize Lollypop as a culture-driven design company. So now what you see on Lollypop homepage is the culture. It's not about our work, it's about the fun we have while we design for our clients.
Thank you, Anil.
So I think all thanks goes to Hemant and Geeta there, who actually coined the name Fractal Ink, but I do know the story behind it. It's, I mean, to be honest with you, it was, this is something that, that was consciously decided to be the name. The reason being, in spite, when you're sitting in front of the client, this was the easiest answer that you could actually coin, you know the answer. And they would definitely ask, why Fractal Ink? The story goes like this. We wanted to be in the domain of technology, digital. Yeah, it was exploding, it was challenging, it was exciting, everything seemed dynamic there. And we were artists, we were art, we were designers actually. And we thought, what combines design and technology as a term? And I think fractal came into our mind. Fractal are patterns which are made out of mathematical equations. It is said that anything that you actually start repeating using a mathematical equation, it becomes beautiful. And we thought we are a perfect combination of design and technology. And that's how Fractal as a name was coined. Ink obviously is our tool to manifest our imagination into paper, and I think that's how Fractal Ink as a name was coined. But it's a wonderful name. The first question we get asked by the clients is, why Fractal? And we are ready with the answer. So I think it has worked well for us as well.
Well, congratulations. I think it has worked well for both of you. A follow-up question. We talk about branding, and of course we talk about that with our clients most of the time. In fact, 70% of our meeting time is devoted to brand identity or brand, whatever, So how does that relate to your own branding as a design firm? How does how does that work for you, or does not work for you? Doesn't matter? Matters? What do you think?
The question is more to do with how do we
Your own brand. So, for example,
how do we
Fractal.
manifest ourselves
Yes.
with our own brand?
Yeah.
I think one quick answer to this question is this: being a design agency, I think we don't pay for change in brand. Okay, so we keep changing it. Okay, the way it looks, and it limits itself at least to us to changing the brand itself, and in the way it looks like. But the essence is that the vision for the brand should be intact. The thing that we started off with, the philosophy on which this whole studio was built up, that still remains the same. And I think if you're able to transfer that to the people who are working with us as colleagues, as our partners, I think if that vision actually is transferred seamlessly, I think there is no other need to actually establish a brand. I think it just kind of shines itself. For us, one thing that we keep telling to our people is, don't design if you're not happy. Put your pen down, put your keyboard away, take it up only when you're feeling a bit happy about doing anything. And I think that has worked well for us. I think we try to be happy in the studio when we're designing. Everybody wants to spread happiness. If somebody is sad, somebody takes them to coffee. And that has worked well and that for me is a brand. That for me is actually a manifestation of Fractal Design Studio in real life.
Yeah. So brand and identity, I think it took a while for us to identify what we really stand and what our brand really stands for. And there were a couple of incidents where we had to kind of stop working and first get ourselves in a room and figure out what Lollypop is and what does Lollypop stand for. And I think this was in 2013 where we started writing a story about Lollypop. And that kind of opened us up, and then from there on, everything that we did, be it client's work or internal work or even moving into a new office, we got that brand and we made sure that it evokes that kind of an emotion. So with every new person, with every new designer we hire and train, right, somewhere without our knowledge, we add that brand essence in ourselves and we kind of pass it on. And today, we have written a book about Lollypop and we have everything in place.
Thank you, Tanay and Anil. I think what I appreciated in both of your brands, so to say, was the element of play, right? Element of play. So that Lollypop, relates to play, and of course, I've seen videos of your studio, and everybody is so very happy doing their work, drinking coffee and playing. So I think that's, yes. And so I think that's very critical. So that's what I appreciate. Now I'm going to move quickly to a question that you may have thought about very seriously, is because you came from the art ground and moved very quickly into the technology. These days, we all talk about digital economy. That's what we're going forward, going in the future, that's what we're going to be living in. What advice would you give to young design students? How to look at it and how to get there?
My piece of advice would be like, get your basics right. Be it digital or whatever the future is, I think just make sure you're still connected to the art. Because me as an artist, from artist I branched out to become a graphic designer, from graphic designer to a web designer, from there to digital, and today an UI UX director. So the base of this is art. So my piece of advice to all the youngsters is make sure you never give up art.
So I think in terms of advice, I mean, I really feel that somebody would have given me an advice when I was actually a student. Design today is no longer a stream which is not known as such. I was thinking of this answer when Shreya asked in the first, what was the challenge that you had while becoming a designer or starting a design studio? So for me, I thought of an answer, and for me the biggest challenge was my dad. So I'll tell you why. Okay, so I joined civil engineering in year 1 because that's, I got through the entrance exam and I joined it, but I didn't like it. And my dad is an electrical engineer, my sister is an electronics engineer, and that was okay, saying, okay, fair enough, civil engineer. It wasn't that high in the grade, but civil engineer is still fine. And after a year, I was bored and I took up architecture. And my dad was like, oh my God. Now, the main challenge was, what would he explain to his colleagues when they asked him, what does your son do? So for the longest time, he kept the stand that he is into civil engineering, okay? Because he found it very tough to explain architecture in terms of design of buildings, so civil engineering was the closest that he could think to. So he was fine, so he kept that stand of me being civil engineer. Post that, I joined communication design. And his life was like hell. Now what? So now what will he explain to his friends, relatives who keep asking, what does your son do? How much does he earn? Is he going to support his family or not, etc., etc. So, so he stopped actually almost explaining things. And in between, I got a project from Z Television to redesign their Z News channel.
Right.
And that was the only point when he could connect to it. So then, till around, even after I started my business, I think he kept saying that he works for Z News. Yeah? And then, after 3 or 4 years, when I started earning decent enough money from design, then he said he's doing well. So what does his son do? So he's doing well. But he would never touch the question of what exactly I'm doing right now. So that was my biggest challenge. I think the younger ones here, you are very fortunate to be in today's world where design thinking is being evangelized by not only designers, but I think the whole industry and people around. So I think I'm very happy for you guys to be in this situation. My only piece of advice is that apart from design, there's a lot other things that happens in the world. You need to start looking at developing those skills parallel to your design skills. Things like soft skills, like writing an email. How do you present yourself? How do you stand up on the stage? How do you justify a design? It's very one of the biggest challenge for me to actually justify to my clients is the white space. They see it as an opportunity while I see it as a design. They always ask me, you know what, the browser is this big, why have you left this white space? Can we put some ads there? Now that has been the biggest challenge. How do you try, I mean, you have to learn these skills. How do you actually tackle these questions? Because we all know that if you're in a design school, you have been really good in your design thinking. But to now transfer to people who don't understand design or probably see white space as money, how do you tackle that? So I think those are the things that I would advise them to actually look into.
Thank you both. I think we have time for one question. Any questions for Anil and Tanay? Yes, please.
Hi. So I think often we discuss about this. A lot of these young fresh graduates, they would want to jump in the industry and start something on their own. They want to do freelancing and then start their own studio. Is that the right way, or do you feel that that initial mentoring, working under someone, learning the culture, is extremely important before you take that big leap? That's my question.
Okay, yeah, I would suggest to work and get mentored under a good designer before starting freelancing, because the last week I spoke in TED, and after the event, there were a lot of young designers came to me and said they were freelancing. So, and the next question they had was, is it the right time for me to start a design studio? Then my answer was, not really, because starting a design studio does not only require the design skills. Like for example, with me, when I started Lollypop, all I knew was only the 180 degree. And the rest 180 degree, to make it 360 degree, I had to seek help from outside. Like for example, business, and even accounts, and even retaining and coming up with a process inside our design studio. These things I didn't know about it. So if I was freelancing, I'm sure I wouldn't have learned these kind of things. Because I worked in agencies like Ogilvy and TBWA, I knew that we need to put these things in place and then grow. So these are the things that you miss out as a freelancer. So my piece of advice is not to freelance right after the college.
So, Shreya, just a short answer. I'm not the right person to answer because I jumped into what you said, doing the exact same thing. But one advice would definitely be do as many things possible, jump as many times you want, across things, doing various things during your initial phase, because that's the time when you can do that. Starting a studio, closing a studio, taking up a job, freelance, do everything, don't even shy away from, if you want to start a studio. I mean really, the maximum that can happen when you're in the early stages of life is you can fail. If you fail, great, I mean there's nothing much to lose there. Because the other thing is that as you start growing up, we all understand that our risk-taking capabilities do go down a lot. You will not be able to do it once you are out of that zone. But yes, you should always have mentorships around. You should collaborate with people. You should have healthy conversation, healthy meetups, which will kind of give you that kind of view what's happening around. So yeah, I mean my advice is jump into everything that you want to.
All right, I've been signaled that we have 0 minute, yes. So thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tanay and Anil, and I wish you the very, very best.